And I know as a white pastor, I have blind spots. So I am part of the problem.
What if I told you that the most significant threat to evangelical beliefs today isn't outside our churches, but brewing within? Stay with me as we delve into why the social justice movement, particularly critical race theory and intersectionality, might just be the wolf in sheep's clothing for conservative Christianity. In a world where confusion and division are rampant, we as conservative Christians stand firm in the truth. But what happens when ideologies like CRT and intersectionality creep into our sacred spaces? Armed with this understanding, let's dive deeper into the social justice movement and CRT. The social justice movement, with CRT at its helm, isn't just a political stance, it's a theological masquerade. Rooted in Marxism, it presents a significant threat, ensnaring even the most respected leaders in evangelical circles. Unlike other movements, it doesn't just attract the fringes of our community, but seduces our theological heavy hitters. Satan, after all, is known to disguise himself as an angel of light. So, is social justice the modern-day Trojan horse in our spiritual battle? Let's talk about why the social justice movement is uniquely alarming. Unlike other threats to evangelicals, it's not just ensnaring the fringes of our community. It's seducing some of our most respected leaders. This isn't about Joel Osteen or Joyce Meyer. No doubt there are members of our churches reading and listening to these prosperity gospel preachers. But the men in our pulpits are not preaching their heresy. With this social justice, CRT, intersectionality, woke garbage, we do. This is about heavy hitters in our theological circles embracing a movement rooted in Marxism. Here's a short list of some of those influential Christian leaders that have drunk the cultural Marxist Kool-Aid. Timothy Keller, recently deceased, prominent pastor from Redeemer Church in New York. He wrote some of my favorite books, but over the last few years went the way of woke. David Platt, prominent pastor and author, can be seen bowing the knee to cultural Marxism. John Piper, pastor and author of Desiring God, has produced a few videos that prescribe the tenets of this garbage. Phil Vischer, VeggieTales creator, has really jumped the shark on this one.
We need to talk about race.
Matt Chandler, pastor and author, has pled for his congregation to renounce their white privilege.
I have grown up with this invisible kind of bag of privilege, this kind of invisible toolkit that I can reach in there at any given moment and have this type of privilege that a lot of other brothers and sisters don't have, don't possess. What I'm talking about right now is white privilege. And so I know some of you are already reaching to kind of click out. Nothing makes Anglos more angry than the idea of white privilege.
Aligning himself with BLM and the 1619 Project. They're both Marxist to the core, just look at their founders. J.D. Greear, pastor and author, former president of the Southern Baptist Convention, can be found preaching in favor of gender and racial justice, oppressor and oppressed, the marginalized.
Now I want to turn more specifically to some of these issues of justice, whether we're talking about racial justice or gender justice or what have you. Tragically, when it comes to many issues of justice, there's often been a malaise in the church, not using the kindest word possible, in large part because the injustice did not directly affect those of us sitting in places of privilege.
He preaches intersectionality, systemic racism, steer clear. And if Marxism sounds familiar, that's because it's basically communism's cousin who comes over for Thanksgiving and never leaves. Remember, socialism, which is communism in diapers, doesn't stay in diapers forever. Of course, there are many other influential leaders that have taken up the social justice cause of CRT, racism, and intersectionality. This is just a quick list. If you've seen indicators of what I'm going to cover in this series in your local church, you need to leave. Get educated, read books on both sides. If you feel called to stay, then I encourage you to work towards having your church adopt the Dallas Statement on Social Justice and the Gospel. Marxism, with its promise of a classless society, is as deceptive as it is destructive. It's the velvet glove over an iron fist of control. And guess what? Our beloved country is strolling down that socialist path, which historically has only one destination: full-blown communism. But here's the twist. The social justice movement isn't just political. It's masquerading as a theological movement. It's a clever strategy to infiltrate the evangelical voting bloc. After all, when you dress up political ideals in spiritual robes, they're harder to question, aren't they? To echo the words of Vadi Bakum, a profound voice in this discourse, social justice is rooted in cultural Marxism. It's fundamentally incompatible with the Christian faith. This statement pierces the heart of the matter, revealing the stark contrast between biblical teachings and the social justice narrative. John MacArthur adds in his foreword to the book Christianity and Wokeness, CRT is basically neo-Marxism on postmodernism steroids, a deeply uncongenial point of view cynically weaponized for the destruction and dismantling of social structures. Wherever it is introduced, CRT deliberately provokes and feeds on disunity. It intensifies ethnic hostility, promotes crass identity politics, foments resentment, and imputes guilt or victimhood to people according to their skin color. This perspective echoes the critical concerns many of us share about the divisive nature of CRT. MacArthur also observes church leaders who would self-identify as gospel-centered seem to have shifted their actual focus of their message to social justice and other themes borrowed from CRT's tapestry of pet issues. This highlights a concerning trend where the core message of the gospel is overshadowed by contemporary social narratives. This leads us to a crucial point: the danger of adding to the gospel. The social justice movement subtly shifts the spotlight from salvation by grace alone, through faith alone, in Christ alone, to a plethora of worldly concerns. In doing so, it risks eclipsing the true essence of the gospel with a cloak of societal and political issues. In a disturbing trend, we're witnessing a number of influential Christian leaders, whom many once regarded as staunch defenders of the faith, seemingly succumbing to the allure of cultural Marxism. This isn't about singling out individuals, but rather recognizing a pattern. These leaders, once pillars in conservative evangelical circles, are now echoing themes that resonate more with the social justice narrative than with traditional gospel-centered teachings. This shift is not just alarming, it's a clarion call for discernment and a return to the unadulterated message of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Think of the social justice movement as a train with CRT as its engine. It's not just the engine of economic and racial justice we're talking about. There are other cars attached, like egalitarianism and shifts in sexual ethics. Once this train enters our churches, it's a package deal, bringing all of its baggage with it. So, returning to our initial question, is social justice the hidden threat within our churches? Absolutely. It's a movement that, under the guise of theology, seeks to undermine our core Christian beliefs and values. As conservative Christians, it's our duty to stand against these distortions and uphold the truth of the gospel. The social gospel isn't about justice or the good news. It's a replacement theology, a counterfeit gospel, and it has taken quite a few Christian leaders by the nose and their churches to the cleaners. Over the next few videos, we'll dive deeper into how the social justice gospel has hijacked the American church and what we can do to stop it. Until next time, God bless.